Welcome to our channel. Today's story is a true wedding horror story. My friend and her mom ruined my wedding. A little backstory before the wedding tea. My best friend in high school and I lived out in the country where we both grew up. She remained there long after I moved away. Her parents gifted my friend, let's call her Ginny, some acreage from their farm. She and her husband built a house and started a family. I had left the area for college and ended up with a somewhat high-profile job in a nearby city. I started to notice that Ginny was not a very happy person. She didn't see the good in things and had no filter about it. As an example, one year I got her a present that was new and trendy. I was all excited and built it up a little. She opened it and groaned with disappointment. "We have this already." I must have looked surprised. So after a minute or so, she said, "But thanks." I mumbled that I had the receipt if she wanted to return it, but was hurt by the reaction. It kept happening, and we started to drift apart. One day, I ran into Ginny and her mother at a mall. We were chatting a bit. They asked what I'd been up to, and I said I was busy making applesauce from our tree. Good topic. These were farm people and did their own canning. How was I doing it? I described the process and mentioned adding cinnamon before I canned it. My friend's mother became upset, said no, you can't put the cinnamon in before you can it. You'll ruin it. They just said, well, I already did it last year and it came out fine. So everything got very quiet. We said our goodbyes and her mother was clearly miffed about something. Ginny told me later that her mother was very offended. I didn't listen to her advice. I had shown a lack of respect. Her mother had never been my biggest fan and I just shrugged it off, like I could remove the cinnamon after the fact anyway. When my ex and I got engaged, Ginny didn't wait for me to ask her to be a bridesmaid. She simply assumed she was going to be my matron of honor, and her daughter would be the flower girl. I panicked a little. We were long past high school and we weren't as close as we had been. My college roommate was to be my maid of honor. I felt awful, but told Ginny about my college roommate, and that we weren't having flower girls because this was a small wedding. I honestly hadn't intended to ask Ginny to be a bridesmaid at all, but I couldn't say no at that point. It was clear she would be very hurt. So we added a groomsman and went on. Now, a small wedding with 70 guests had 5 bridesmaids and grooms, but hey, if it made people happy, so be it. It was also assumed I would invite Ginny's parents, in spite of the applesauce. Onward and upward. I was married back in the day when couples still got china and crystal. I'd seen all of my friends add a line on the invitation or another small card saying the couple is registered at. Since I was still living in the area, I wasn't completely clueless. I knew that people had money issues. COVID has made people more considerate of that. Back then, the economy wasn't the best, and people were tight with their money. We were trying to be very practical and conscious of everyone else's finances. So I registered for a Christmas stoneware pattern, crystal and cutlery at Lord & Taylor. Figured the only time you pulled out the good china was Christmas dinner. So let's get something a little less formal that we'd really use. Figured that only the family would probably use that registry. I also registered at a discount store for small appliances, kitchen items, and some linen. Lots of choices, lots of prices. This type of store doesn't really exist anymore since big box stores appeared. But it was a way to get basic items without spending a fortune. And really, who cares about gifts anyway? I thought of it as suggestions. I sent the invitations out. They were on time and they were beautiful. A week or two later, I got an anonymous letter in the mail. It said I was a selfish bitch, and that I had a lot of nerve asking people for gifts. It said I had no regard for people, as finances or feelings, and my career had gone to my head. I needed to grow up. I really took this to heart and was very upset. It was pretty obvious this was from Ginny's mother, but still, I was determined to be more careful of people's feelings. The rest of the wedding planning went smoothly, and I won't repeat it all here. When we got to the wedding day, everything went perfectly. There were college and work friends for me and my husband, but nobody else from high school, and I was worried about Ginny feeling out of place. She was paired with a wonderful friend of my husband's, who looked after her during the bridal party stuff. I sat her husband with my family who knew him. Big surprise. Her parents were a no-show, but Ginny seemed to be having a great time, smiling broadly and dancing. The flowers and table decor were perfect. People sang and danced all night. The champagne flowed. We cut our Ben & Jerry's ice cream cake, and life was good. I was a beautiful bride. We had a great night, went on a wonderful honeymoon in the Caribbean, and came back to the real world. A week later, I called Ginny, eager to hear what she thought about the wedding. Surprise! She said my friends were arrogant and rude, and generally, what an awful experience it was. She hated the food. She said everyone treated her poorly, and I hadn't spent enough time with her, that I had changed. I couldn't believe my ears. Yes, of course I'd changed, but hopefully not in my character. And I realized it was just another instance of my efforts not being good enough. I had spent a lot of my reception worrying about everyone else and not enjoying the focus on me. Just once, I thought, couldn't she hold in her feelings and tell me everything was wonderful? Lie to me. It's my wedding, and I tried to make it good for you. You know, this could have been an Am I the Asshole, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. Maybe Ginny was jealous of me. Maybe she felt left behind. But that latest episode of finding me lacking no matter how hard I tried was just the last straw. I cut off our friendship and never looked back. And I continue to put cinnamon in applesauce before I can it out of spite. And I thought this was the end of it. But I have an update. Do you know? Ginny never even invited me to her own wedding. It was fairly soon after high school, so I must have been in college. I guess she was already pissed at me for something. My wedding was 10 years later. And I do remember we had lost touch for a while, maybe over the dustbuster incident.